With AMD's new CPU lineup near its launch, AMD is trying very hard to make a comeback as its Ryzen 5000 series CPUs aren't able to compete with the Intel Alder Lake processors. We have seen AMD reducing the prices of its CPUs significantly, like the Ryzen 5600X is now available for less than $250, although it was initially launched for $300. Similar is the case with the Ryzen 5800X, which is now available for less than $350, although it was launched for $450. AMD is looking afraid of losing more CPU market as its CPU share began to drop significantly after Intel launched the Alder Lake CPUs. And if you are following this channel, in one of my previous videos, I talked about AMD launching more Ryzen CPUs in the 5000 family. The panic is looking real as AMD is planning to launch even more CPUs to counter the budget Alder Lake CPUs. Make sure you get subscribed to this channel if you want to stay updated with the latest releases in 2022 and if you want regular updates on the battle between giant PC manufacturers. It's a no-brainer that AMD got hit hard with the Intel Core i5-12400 and the Core i3-12100 processors. These two gave better or at least equivalent performance for much lower price compared to Ryzen 5000 CPUs. So AMD decided to launch Ryzen 5700X, 5600 and the 5500, where the 5700X is going against the i5-12600K, Ryzen 56 is going against the i5-12400 and Ryzen 5500 against the i3-12100. However, there are a few more additions to this list which we never heard before. According to WCC FTech, AMD is set to release Ryzen 5700, Ryzen 5100 and also some Ryzen CPUs with the Zen 2 architecture. These are 4600G, 4700, 4500 and also the 4100. The Ryzen 5700X and the 5600 are going to be made on the same Zen 3 architecture as the other Ryzen 5000 series CPUs, but the 5700, 5500 and 5100 are actually going to use the Cezanne die which are used in APUs. Unfortunately, there will be no inbuilt iGPUs on these chips. Also, due to using APU dies, they are bringing lower cache sizes and slower performance. Similarly, the 4000 CPU list has the 4600G which is an actual APU, but the 4700, 4500 and 4100 won't be featuring any iGPUs. The question is, why AMD has added more CPUs to the list? The 5700X, 5600 and the 5500 are already there to counter the best budget processors from Intel. Then why AMD thinks that it should bring even more CPUs, especially when it is time for them to prepare for the Ryzen 7000 series? And this is not the only problem. AMD looks so confused about pricing these processors. WCC FTech published a table where it has mentioned the pricing of most of these new CPUs. The site has not listed the original source, or it might be the original source itself. Or it is also possible that it is the opinion maintained by WCC FTech. The pricing might turn out to be accurate, as even video cards posted the same pricing quoting WCC FTech. But you should still take this with a grain of salt, as leaks do get inaccurate sometimes. If you start from the strongest chip to be released, which is the Ryzen 5700X, the price is set to be $299. Previously, from a leak by Mega Size GP on Twitter, it was said that 5700X will be cheaper than the i5-12600KF, which has an MSRP of around $270. But it seems that AMD is not pricing it less than 12600KF, but is instead charging $30 more. Similar is the case for the Ryzen 5600, which is supposedly going against the i5-12400, and the 5500, which is going against the i3-12100. Both of these CPUs were previously thought to be priced lower or at least equivalent to the Intel competitors. While the price of Ryzen 5600 looks to be accurate as per the leaks, Ryzen 5500 is going to cost $160, which was initially thought to be a $130 chip. Now instead, AMD is releasing the Ryzen 5100, which is supposedly featuring 4 cores and 8 threads, which is equal to the core thread count of i3-12100. However, there is no word on the pricing yet. Now it gets bizarre when we see that Ryzen 4500, which is based on Zen 2 architecture, will be the actual competitor to the i3 sitting at $130. However, it brings more cores and more threads, but of course we know it won't be better than the Ryzen 5500 or the i3-12100. Now I think that AMD will price the Ryzen 5100 somewhere between $110 and $130 because the Ryzen 4100 is going to be priced at $99 and 5100 is naturally more powerful, and I think it is the only processor from AMD that will go against the i3-12100 because pricing has to be nearly equal if you want a fair competition. So we have at least 3 to 4 processors from AMD that are going to cost somewhere from $100 to $160, but I'm still confused as to which processor AMD thinks is suitable to compete with the i3. Is it the 5500 or the 5100, or is it the 4500? I think AMD has created a mess, and it is very unlikely that the 5600, which is going against the i5-12400, can beat the latter, as the i5 is already giving an equal competition to the Ryzen 5600X. I also don't think that Ryzen 5700X can beat the i5 12600K or the F edition. It's a rushed decision by AMD and this will only increase confusion among the gamers. I want to know your thoughts on this, and while I gather more info for the next video, you can watch my previous video right here where I talked about these CPUs. Also make sure you subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any latest videos on my channel, and I will see you in the next one.